Hello, this is Steady Rollin' Bob Margolin, and I've got the blues for you with John Broughton on retrospectives on 3SER Radio Casey.
Was there ever going to be a different career path for you other than being a musician? Was that always the way it was going to be?
I've always wanted to do this ever since I was in bands when I was 15. I feel fortunate to have been able to have been doing it so long.
Tell us about some of the early bands you were involved with in Boston.
Well, at first I was in bands that were playing music off of the radio at the time, but pretty soon I started getting really interested in blues and was playing with other musicians who were also interested in it, and we developed that together, and eventually I was in the early 70s a band that was led by a former member of Muddy Waters' band, Luther Georgia Boy Snake Johnson, and he ran his band very much the same way, and it was like being in training for Muddy's band. And I was in another band after that, the Boston Blues Band, which while I was in that band, I had opened some shows for Muddy. He'd seen us playing old-style Chicago blues, and he was very encouraging to me. Then in 1973, I went to one of his gigs in Boston, and he had just fired somebody the night before, and I was the next guitar player he saw. Turned out to be an opportunity that really changed my life.
What kind of band leader was Muddy? Was he a teacher? I get the impression he was very big on encouraging his musicians to learn from him.
Yes, he was. He really, his attitude was, if you got a star in the band, let him shine. He'd love it for people to do songs before he came up, and he always gave everybody lots of solos. So he was, a band leader that developed a lot of other band leaders out of his band, as opposed to some of the other great bluesmen.
What would you put down as the main thing you learnt from your time with Muddy?
I've been asked that before, and I really don't have any one specific thing, but I learned a lot about music, and certainly the feel of the old style Chicago and Delta blues from Muddy, as well as the more modern style that we were creating and living at the time. But aside from that, I also learned a lot about being around those older, wiser, more experienced guys that were in the band. I learned a lot about living too, as we were all out on the road together.
I guess there would have been some very memorable shows in that time that you spent playing with Muddy. Any that particularly stand out to you?
Well, there was one when we were playing in a city in France where they made the champagne that Muddy liked to drink. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but on that particular day, he really caught fire and was just doing some of his older songs and doing them with fire that he didn't usually show in the mid-'70s. And it was a very special night. It's the heaviest music I've ever heard in my life, and certainly ever been involved in playing.
And I guess playing with the band at the Last Waltz must be a show you get asked about a lot.
Yeah, that was a very interesting, kind of surreal evening, because there was so many rock stars around there, and it was such a big event. But there was a big party after the show where all the people that were in the movie and in the show were all hanging out together, and all the blues ones, all the ones that were interested in blues, were all hanging together and jamming together too. It's a situation of the blues bringing a lot of those well-known musicians together, just the way it does for the rest of us.
Now, there was quite a gap in years between the time that you left Muddy's band and began recording for yourself. What were you doing during that time?
During spent most of the 80s, I was living in Virginia and working mostly in Virginia and North Carolina, not recording, but the club scene was good enough to just run around making a lot of money without having to deal with a lot of unpleasant business aspects of it. That was, and when your career is a lot simpler that way, there's a lot of business and management situations and booking situations you don't have to deal with. It was a very happy and simple time, and I think I grew a lot musically during that time too, mostly during the 80s.
After a couple of albums, you eventually found yourself at Alligator Records. How much of an advantage was it for you then to be with a label that was dedicated totally to the blues?
Well, it was a wonderful advantage, not only because of their musical dedication, but because Alligator Records really knows how to promote their artists. It really publicizes people very well. They have departments for radio and different ones for print media, and they try and promote you and do as good a job as is done in the blues world for getting somebody out there. That was really nice to have them working with me, and I did 3 albums with them that I'm very proud of, and we had a real good run together for a few years.
Did you have any problems adjusting from being at one stage a guitar player in somebody else's band to all of a sudden being the front guy yourself?
It was kind of an overnight thing to do it, but it felt like something that I was ready to do. It happened when I started my own band after leaving Muddy's band in 1980, but I'd already gotten a little experience doing it by when I was off from Muddy. I would sometimes put things together, especially in about 1979. Run around and do my own gigs with other people. So it was an abrupt change, but it was one that I was ready for at the time.
Now you're with Blind Pig Records now. How did you find your way there?
Well, what happened is kind of interesting. I had met Bill Morganfield, Muddy's son, in 1994, and we got to be good friends. And when I was on a television show that was made at the Kennedy Center as a tribute to Muddy, which has been on educational TV in the United States. I don't know if it's been shown.
It has actually. We've got it on cable TV here. Yeah, we did see it.
Well, that particular show, I was asked to play on it and recommended to the producer that Muddy had a son that could do a real good job for him, and so they did. They did get Bill on the show, and the Blind Pig people saw him on there and signed him, and then Bill went and returned the favor again around by recommending me to produce his debut album for Blind Pig, Rising Sun, and that worked out so well with me and him and Blind Pig working together that they seemed interested in some of my new material, and I was having artistic differences with Alligator over it, and Blind Pig was into it, so it seemed like a good time to jump. All of it was done up front with everybody being considerate of obligations and our friendships, and it was all done in a really nice way for a business change like that.
Which is unusual these days, I guess.
Yes, it is,
yeah.
But no scandal here. Everybody was happy and friendly about it.
That's terrific. Tell us a bit about the Muddy Waters tribute band that you've been involved with. How did that all come together?
In about 93, a booking agent from Boston who was too young to have ever seen us with Muddy booked Muddy's, well, not his last band, but the one that was with him through most of the 70s, put everybody back together to do some concerts, and it was very successful musically, as well as drew a lot of people to each year we'll all get together again and do a short tour or an isolated club or concert date. So that's been happening since 1993. The members of that group are Calvin Jones on bass, Willie Smith on drums, Luther Guitar Jr. Johnson on guitar, Jerry Portnoy on harmonica, Pine Top Perkins on the piano, and me.
That's a fantastic lineup.
Excuse me?
It's a fantastic lineup, it really is.
It sure is fun to get back together with those guys and play.
Now let's talk about your upcoming shows down here in Australia. Are you bringing your full band with you?
Yes, as well as Bill Morganfield.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a lot of shows like that last year that were very, very successful with him added on to my band, and we enjoy working with each other that way. We play. I'll play some of my songs from my new album and the things I've been working on, and then we bring him up and do some of the songs from that he's been working on his Blind Pig record, and he's working on a new one now too.
Oh, terrific.
We'll be doing some new material when we're there.
You've done a lot of work with Bill, and having worked with both father and son, what are the major similarities that have become obvious to you?
Well, Muddy was a very mature artist by the time I got there, and Bill was just starting out, so it's a world apart. Muddy knew what he wanted to do, and his producers in the 70s, the best thing they could do was just let him go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Bill really didn't have any experience, but he had great instincts and a compass that pointed to deep, and he certainly inherited some talent and some charisma from his father, but at the same time he has wanted to be his own musician and not try to be Muddy Jr.
Yeah. So
there are some similarities in that he was capable of some magic like Muddy was, but he's at the beginning of his career and Muddy was at the end of his.
Mm-hmm.
So those are pretty different, and Muddy was pretty special. It's not fair to judge anybody by whether they can fill those shoes or not, because you can't.
No, definitely not.
You can shine them though.
For sure. Now you're playing some festivals while you're here. Are you just as happy in those kind of situations as you would be in the blues clubs?
It's a different experience. I enjoy both of them for different reasons. There's a lot of energy that comes back to you from a festival, but sometimes there's a intimacy and looseness in a club that is pretty hard to get in a festival. So there's advantages and disadvantages to each, but I don't think it's the same.
Sure. Okay, well, before we just finish up, what's on your books after you leave Australia? What plans have you got for the rest of the year?
Well, in the middle of the year over here, the summertime is what they call festival season. There's a lot of blues festivals going on in the United States, and I'll be playing a lot of them, some of them with just my band, some of them with Bill, some of them with Pine Top, some with Bill and Pine Top, and a few with the Muddy tribute band that I was just hearing about today have just come up. There's a few concerts going on in the summertime. So I plan to be pretty busy, and while I'm out there doing my own music too, which I always get to on whatever show I'm on at some point, but I really enjoy being able to work with such great musicians as Bill Morganfield and Pine Top and the guys from the Muddy Tribute Band. I also hope to be doing some more things with great rhythm and blues singer Nappy Brown, who I've known for a long time. We used to work together a lot, and we just did a show together last weekend that went real well. I'm hoping we can do some more things with him.
Terrific. Plenty to keep you busy then.
Yeah, I'll be pretty busy, that's for sure.
Okay, Bob, look, thanks for your time today. We're really looking forward to catching you down here, and Bill as well. And we love our blues down here in Australia, so I've no doubt you'll find enthusiastic audiences everywhere you play.
I was there with Muddy Waters in 1974.
Oh, well, of course.
And so I've been waiting a long time to come back. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, we're looking forward to seeing you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Bob, thanks again for your time. We'll see you in the next month or so.
You got it.
All the best.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.